All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to AR Explainer by INDE, the show where we explain augmented reality in all its shapes and forms and all the cool stuff that's going on in that world. Right now, I'm coming to you from sunny Europe, and we have some special guests with us today. We've got Alex Poulson, who is CEO at INDE. Give us a wave. And we've got Xava Fragoso, who's CDO at INDE. Hey, guys.
Hello.
Hey, hello.
You're sitting next to each other, very close, which is fine. We're sure that that's okay.
Same bubble.
Right, same bubble. Thank you for clarifying that. Can you tell us where you are?
We're in about an hour outside Mexico City, about 2,500 meters up.
Yep.
Quarantining to be able to head into the US to start lots of different installations in for 2021.
Okay. So Mexico City, is that like a quarantine destination of choice, or?
Well, we're well outside. We're an hour and a half. We're really in the countryside, which is good. But yeah, it's one of the upshots of the kind of the different sort of travel bans for Europe and the US, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, it's lovely here. It's like 22 degrees. Food's fantastic. People are great. Beer's lovely. It's all good.
Is it good to be home, X-Man?
Yeah. No, it's good. Like the whole process has been really interesting. Like arriving, like isolation at different home, COVID tests. Hug my mom. That's
so many PCR tests to get here.
Yeah.
And
really?
So PCR tests to then get into the US, and then probably so many PCR tests to get back home as well.
Well, augmented reality waits for no pandemic.
It's running a business waits for no pandemic, I can tell you that.
It just must happen. So thanks for making some time, for carving out some time from quarantine. And today we've got a very focused topic. INDE, obviously an agency that works with a broad range of augmented reality applications across the board. Visit the website, Google it, everybody. But you probably know INDE by now if you're joining us, since you're in one of our networks and we had joined you and we invited you. But today I wanted to just get a little bit more scientific than we often do when it comes to how we talk about AR applications. And I think the one thing, and actually Xava and Alex, if you could mute yourselves, because you got a bit of an echo coming off you. So, and while I'm talking, mute yourself. Thanks, buddies. Hey. So just get a little bit scientific about it, right? So we're making all these things. Where do they actually fit in? And part of that science, I'm going to show a few graphics here. Everybody knows very well the traditional sales funnel or the marketing funnel, where you had kind of this linear path of awareness to familiarity, consideration, purchase, and then eventually loyalty. So purchasing again. So that linear path, I think it's still very much valid in certain ways, but because of our digital world, it has just been upended, and the way that works now is a little bit different. So there are many theories on how it works. This is McKinsey's model of what the funnel looks like today, and I think that's one that a lot of marketers use, and a lot of marketers who are thinking about augmented reality are wondering. They see that it looks cool, that it can do stuff, and people like it, and but I think if they're looking to justify a business decision, then they have to figure out where exactly it fits in the funnel. So we're going to come back to this funnel quite a few times. So you'll see this kind of triggering moment, the initial consideration, and then this loop, right, where the active evaluation, where you're jumping between brands. What do I like? I'm comparing websites. Maybe I'm going to an aggregator. Who knows? I buy something, and then I have that post-purchase experience, which has a longer tail than it would have, say, 20 years ago. So we'll keep this in mind and keep throwing it back in. So as much as we don't want to make this an academic PowerPoint session, that's a useful slide. So we're going to use it, right? And you can figure out when you're pitching to your own boss, or if you're the boss, you can figure out exactly how this fits in. So what we'll do, guys, if it's okay with you, I want to just talk us through a few examples of AR activations. And then I would just like to debate a little bit where these fit in. I don't have the answer, but as a marketer myself, I'm always wondering how I would explain it to a client. And so, I mean, it's a debate. So is that cool? Turn your mics back on to say, yes, that's exactly what we want to do.
Yes, that is exactly what.
Oh, gosh, this is great. This is going to go just fine. So if we look at, going back to the early consumer, and I would say today is really quite consumer focused, right? So we're talking about that purchase funnel. Let's just make that clear that we're pretty B2C today. So just going to take some early examples that you've seen in the AR world. For example, this is Adidas in their home shoe try on. That's one pair of shoes. That's another pair of shoes, right? So this is one of the early, most probably useful applications of AR that you've seen out there, because it's obvious. And we've talked about before on other AR Explainer episodes that shoes are easy to make appear real on your phone and your foot at the same time. So guys, what do you think? Make it scientific for me. What am I buying this for? Where does it fit? Is it a trigger? Is it a post-purchase thing?
I think it's part of evaluation, really. I think one of the things that's happened with AR is that it's beginning to become a feature in the evaluation process before you get to a product. I think obviously initially there's lots of there's sparkling marketing campaigns going with certain products, but as you see something like this in particular, that's giving me an option to visualize a product before I potentially go to buy it. Now, what were my other options before I went to buy it? They were basically looking at a photo of the shoes, looking at a photo of the shoes on someone else who is probably taller and skinnier and better looking, etc., etc. And so what that particular tool is giving you is the option to visualize it with you wearing it in situ relatively quickly.
Yeah, there's a point that it's also interesting what's happening with this loop thing, that the social element, because even if he's not making a purchase, probably he's sharing that content. By sharing that content, you can go also to the previous, like sharing it with your friends, a little bit of awareness, but also something similar that happens with the post-purchase funnel, that is the personal recommendation. Someone close to you is using it, and therefore, even if there's no purchase per se there, but it's also a sense of awareness of what it could be about. So that's why, I think, unlike the regular funnel, and unlike also the loop, the social connection makes this a little bit more organic, a little bit, you can go deeper into the layers.
Okay, so just to get McKinsey on it again, right? So we're in evaluation phase. So this has not necessarily been the amazing trigger, because maybe it's something we discovered. We went to a plain old website, or we went to a plain old mobile website, and then, there's the AR thing, which maybe isn't even presented as a very ridiculously wow feature. It's just kind of obviously, right? So do you think could you also retool it so that it is like the trigger, it is like the kind of eye-catching thing, or is it just purely the utilitarian middle part of the evaluation phase?
I think in time, I think one of the issues you've got with, let's say, web AR, mobile AR at the moment, is that there's still people are still learning what it does. So, and you see this all the time. We've seen it for years in terms of mobile. You're at the moment, you're having to go through a process of explaining what this thing is, and then what it can offer you, and then hoping that those values are enough for you to then use it. Certainly, I think at some point in the future, I think I don't know, I'm not going to put a time on it, but there's going to be a point where that becomes the go-to way of visualizing product or trying on product. And I think that's a big shift. You're talking, that's a kind of societal shift that needs to happen in terms of understanding the principle that you can try on something virtually rather than just look at pictures of it on the internet. That's a big shift for people.
Yeah, you have two fronts. Like one is the marketing side, where okay, we create this new feature and it aligns with the brand narrative that we are, we're the future. We are presenting you like the latest technology. So that's one thing. But when you think about the customer journey, and just like referring to a personal example in which I was looking for hiking boots, right? Never bought hiking boots, but pandemic. Yeah. So in part of the purchase process was that, okay, I select this brand that I had never heard. Then how do I know what's my perfect fit? So it seems that a plugin of a company on the e-commerce side, basically you have an options of, okay, if you have Adidas or if you have Nike, like this is how it could relate. So that's like a longer part of the process, but it's trying to do the same. Like, how can I know that this will fit? And that's just in terms of sizing. If you add on top the visualization of the product on your own feed, like that's I think that it will be an integral part of the how the customer journey will evolve with these tools.
I think it's often. I think the AR industry doesn't like talking about AR being a feature. They constantly want to talk about it being a kind of fundamental revolution, and I think sometimes sometimes it's a bit too much. I think sometimes an AR tool like that offers a great middle ground in between the physical store and the online presence, and I don't think that's a bad thing. Most great progress is often iteration anyway, and that's realistically, and that's an iteration of where we were previously, which is look at a JPEG online of that particular product.
So speaking of fundamental part of the journey, I guess, just to jump over to our Swedish friends for a moment, nothing sounds worse to me, or sounded worse to me in the last 9-10 months than going to IKEA, and even before that, same. But it just is not a thing that I would like to do. And I also would like to have furniture that is not IKEA, but we all know that I'm going to end up buying IKEA, right? It's just going to happen because you just are. So just similar to the try-on, or to the shoe try-on, I mean, I guess this is also part of that evaluation phase where you're even able to now look at different lighting situations and make sure that it's all gonna, the chair. I have that chair actually. I didn't even know this when I was prepping. See, I told you I would go there. I'm not going to go to some expensive design store. I'm going to go to that design store. So how do you think that this, the pandemic makes it so that a marketer understands that something like this is now fundamental? Is the convincing of the powers that be within a company easier now because they're like, yeah, of course you need this? Or are we where we started before? What's changed?
Yeah, it's easier. I mean, I remember having those conversations with a brand that will remain nameless in London about visualizing artwork on a wall on a mobile phone in 2011. And I was politely laughed out of the building. I think in terms of, for IKEA, it is just perfection. There was obviously a sort of utilitarian nature to a lot of the products. They render well because they're not always that detailed. A lot of their furniture is
like the process that they have been making during years in how they produce and organize 3D assets is like world class. There's nothing like what they have. The transition to AR visualization was more.
It's something that's one of the few genuinely useful mobile AR apps that are currently in play, and I think that's one of the models that needs to be referenced when you talk about, well, how why would I use a mobile phone to visualize a product of any kind? That it fits the brand, it fits the product. It allows you to visualize it in situ. It allows you to move it around in situ, which is another, like, people kind of forget sometimes that you've got the option to place it. It's not just an overlay. And in the old, I say in the old days, and when you were kind of on original sort of early iPhone stuff with AR, they were effectively just an overlay on the camera view. But now you've got kind of AR kit and AR core positioning and depth mapping. You're in a position where you can actually set a room up. I mean, not just one piece of furniture going forward.
And it mixes two things. That is, one is the need, customer need, and the other is the desire that IKEA does those two things quite well. And don't forget about the execution. Like that application is flawless in the user experience. I was in the search for a TV like a couple of weeks ago. LG has this AR viewer for different models, and the user experience is really bad. But I could show my wife what like the difference between a 55 and a 65 inch screen in our living room, which I went for the 55 though. But yeah, like it's the full flow that for me what it gives value, and it shows also the future. Once that you incorporate leader, it means that also you could like replace your old furniture that it's on the shops, and you can overlay the new one by scanning the walls and replacing physical objects, and so that will be obviously further steps, but it's a good direction, I think.
And I think that's a great example of the whole kind of VR AR conversation. I think it's like, well VR would be VR would naturally be the one that would allow me to visualize it, but there is nothing like visualizing a digital object in a physical space. So if you're going to kit out an entire kitchen, for example, with IKEA or a lounge, then you would be, if you're doing it through VR, through a headset, you'd be visualizing all of it digitally. And then you'd lose a bit of context because your physical space doesn't look the same as the digital visualization that you have in fully in 3D. So to be able, there's this constant balance in AR between how real you can get the digital product to look, and then placing that and lighting it in the right way to appear in a real world environment. Obviously, it's very difficult for you to control where that product is going to appear. I mean, that's a nice shot.
Just context.
Yeah, and I think that's a marketing shot. Unfortunately, I don't think it will be quite.
Oh, really? Oh, I got fooled, didn't I?
No, I think to be fair, I think if you understood what was happening within the application and you understood that the lighting was adjustable by X, and then you could adjust the lighting in the room by X. Then what you're doing, you're constantly trying to find a balance in between the lighting and rendering of the digital product and the real room. And the closer you can get those to line up, the more likely it's going to look like that. But that's an unbelievable.
No, and it's getting closer. I mean, like we have been working lately a lot with ARKit and all the tools that Apple has been giving to developers. And for me, one of the things that is mind blowing is how easy it is to set up like lighting conditions, materials in order to achieve shots like that.
Cool. So just to jump from something that feels probably less fundamental, because there are other parts of the funnel, right? So as we see, so those parts have to be there. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a funnel. There would just be the one part. And it's a process, it's a journey. So just, and this is just a photo here. I didn't have the video right away. This is something I found on Blippar's website. So it's a study with Blippar's technology, case study with their technology. And I think we had someone registered to join us today. So thanks for joining us. Essentially, what I read of the case study, this is an activation where you can win something. That's why I thought it was interesting. So it's this moment where you are invited to win music tickets. There you go. And probably if it's like, Monopoly at McDonald's, you can also win a cheeseburger or a Pepsi. There's not just the big prize. But the idea that you are kind of getting people into a contest. So that's a kind of, take the AR away. That's a very tried and true marketing technique, whether it comes in your email or it comes in direct mail, or you're walking through and somebody hands you a coupon or something. Or even the McDonald's scratch off, right? They would love you to come in and get a free burger, but they really know you're going to buy a meal deal, right? So what do you think about this kind of part? I think I know where it fits in the funnel. It starts with a T, but do you think the same? And should this feel as fundamental to marketers, that part of the funnel, as the IKEA stuff?
I think we're very early stages with that, and having seen that appear in various guises over the past kind of 6-7 years, it's still in a kind of marketing campaign phase. So I think this particular example does provide value to the customer. I think we're early on in the sense that, did the customer know how that would work? And I think we've already evolved on from the idea of kind of dynamic packaging is fascinating, because it's not immediately very easy to understand, but when you do understand that your phone can unlock something from a product package, it's quite mind-blowing. And I remember doing sort of probably around sort of 2013, I remember doing using the Coca-Cola logo on a Coke can to trigger 3D content. And you suddenly, the permutations of that and the potential of it is absolutely huge. One of the issues that comes up is, okay, well, how much am I going to be able to adapt that product packaging to illustrate that someone should point their phone at it to trigger an experience? And over the years, the conversations with brands, mainly kind of US, you're getting into their area. You're getting into something that no one's messing with the design of a Coke can. That's a very well protected asset. So I think we need to get to the point where people naturally assume that that's going to happen, and I think that's still a way out. And I think that's potentially even past mobile, and that's potentially on glass, because once you're on glass, it's kind of happening by default, in my opinion.
Yeah, like for me, it's also part of the principle of augmenting something, right? In this case, a moment, a product, an experience, and it's a line in the battle for attention, right? That's the ultimate battle that marketers needs to fight at the moment. And but yeah, like one of the things that we are watching is that like known patterns, like as you mentioned, coupons or like these well-known patterns, just translated into a new media. It's easy for the people audience to recognize it, but it's not like pushing the full potential of the technology, just because you need to explain it first.
I
Makes
think.
sense.
Sorry.
No, I just said that makes sense.
I'm just sorry.
Well, you should be. But actually, terrible segue to the thing I want to segue to. But totally different experience. So this one, okay, we don't know, because I don't have the full case study, but we don't know if the consumer would know exactly how to use it. We don't know how they encountered the idea that this is a thing and they can do it. Another case study here, using, I think Blipbar did this as well. This was the launch of the OnePlus phone, which happened entirely in AR, well, at least part of it in AR last summer. And these are just a few screenshots of what you'd be able to see. And the thing was, it's a great video, and do Google it, because I think it was pretty fun experience and a nice thing for the viewer. But this was, and I worked for a big global PR agency. This is very much like there's a big thing happening. Alert the media. The way that you find out about this is, if you're the press, you've got the press release in the review unit. It's an event, right? So how do you think? So since you're PR professionals, both of you, how do you think something like this fits into the funnel that way? And is there room for like the mobile wow, the mobile AR wow event? Should that be a thing? And is this one a good one?
In a way, yeah. I think it sets an interesting kind of precedent in terms of you consuming a launch or an event on a different platform and in a different way. I think the idea of a virtual event is obviously something that we've kind of all, to a certain extent, got used to in 2020. I think the one thing that the virtual launches, online launches don't offer again is that kind of tangible element of being there and seeing it, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's still very early days in terms of how you use that. And I think the kind of simultaneous launch, the group launch, allowing people to consume potentially live content. I think the idea of consuming live launch content is really fascinating. in the sense that the only way you're going to get access to this is via this particular medium. And whether that's actually, every celebrity hosting a particular product in every room in the UK or in the US, for example, I think that gets really, really interesting.
So if we had to place this, if I were selling it to a PR client, I would say, PR is always the trigger. And then they're like, we're done triggering. Bye. Now that's your problem to sell stuff. So it's the idea of the PR stunt where you've got something big to do and big to show, and something that is exciting. And I think probably in this case you could say the execution itself was a novelty at this point, and it still will be for a while. So there's probably a window for more in that space to figure out, okay, how do we make that all happen at one time? I actually don't know if it happened at one single moment, if it was actually like a launch event or if it was an extended thing. I think if I were selling it, I would probably say, stretch that out and try to have different moments where you can, different like check-ins or like streaming parties, or I don't know. I would probably stretch it out to squeeze more budget out of the client. I'm just kidding. But let's be honest. So I think that there's still interesting. It's an interesting time to innovate in that space, and like that's like it's fun, right? It's just fun. I think yeah.
Yeah, no, I think you're right in the sense that I think the earlier you are, when you're talking to a client, the earlier that you are in that particular pipeline, talking about adding ongoing value, the better that campaign is going to be. I think there's a lot of short-term thinking that goes on in terms of launching particular product. And I get that brands, etc., are under tremendous stresses to launch so many products a year and have so much success, etc. But I think that you will need to provide grander value, and I think AR embedded inside that. If you've created something interesting enough for someone to use it to evaluate a product, then they're potentially interested in being all the way through the loop using it. But it goes. We were talking about it the other day actually. And AR is so content intensive. It needs good content, and it needs genuine narrative. And I think at the moment we're still on that cusp of seeing developers work on AR launches for brands. And I think what needs to happen is that it needs to be treated in a similar way to full-blown campaigns, to TV campaigns. There needs to be research, there needs to be knowledge, and there needs to be an understanding that you're going to have to create a story arc and a narrative running all the way through. And if I've got someone launching a product for me at stage whatever it is, 1.5, in between 1 and 2, then how am I going to retain those people by giving them future events that aren't necessarily just selling a product? I mean loyalty is, it's just such a seemingly a sort of underrated part of that. I think it's hard to keep people loyal, but I've always been amazed with the work that we've done and the things that I've seen from other people. Sometimes you kind of just build something and you give something to people that's of genuine value, and they'll reward you with loyalty or engagement.
Diffusion.
Yeah. I want to jump to something that's very close to my heart and my family. So I have a 7-year-old daughter. She is on TikTok, and she's been banned 6 times, just as a side note, because she's 7 years old, and the software knows. It knows. What's that?
What was the ban?
Just because I think it can tell. Well, first of all, you're supposed to be 13, and she's 7. I think and once you've been banned once, I think I'm sure they have a copy of your face, and then they do facial recognition when you try to do it again. So she's used to being banned now. She's like, Dad, I was banned again. Anyway, so that's a side note, but it's happened a lot. But related to that, she has grown this addiction to these toys called fidget toys. I don't know if you've heard about fidgets. I bet you haven't, seeing that you don't have any 7-year-olds currently. But the fidget, all it is you like, I should have prepared that, but I'm just thinking of it like you pop stuff and you just like touch buttons like bubble wrap. Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of them. So last week, this thing that should have cost about, €1.99 or $1.99 or however many pesos that is. She decided that she wanted to use all her savings, and she spent €35 on this thing to order in the mail because she had to have it. And where did she see it? She saw it in something that is not unlike this, a product that INDE or someone like INDE would have made, is that someone was playing with a filter on TikTok, or they had somehow figured out how to introduce this thing and make it a craze. And of course, yes, probably the craze took hold organically. But probably it didn't. So I guess my question is, why did you make my daughter buy this? No, but
it's fidgets and religion, the two things we don't touch, right?
Fidgets and religion. But I mean, like, so if I look at her, because she's now, even though she's 7, she is on a customer journey as well. Like she has her own tablet. She knows all the e-commerce websites. We use a Dutch one called bol.com. If you search for the English word toys on there, you don't get toys, just so you know. You have to search for the Dutch word for toys. You get something else. Try that. And that's happened many times because she's with her 2 languages. But anyway, so she's constantly in the funnel, right? So she's getting new triggers every day. And then she gets the repetition of that trigger. I don't know if it's repetition of the trigger, but she gets repetition of fidgets, and she will see 100 kids playing with the same, $2 toy and then you go, and then the e-commerce websites find out about it, and suddenly it's $35. Boom, right? And then she's like, "Count me in, Dad." So at the risk of, this is not, of derailing us to advertising for kids, let's not do that. Let's assume that she's 13 and legally allowed to be seeing these things. What does that look like? What is the, thinking of if you're running a toy store, and I know that we had Steven on the line, who is in the toy store business, is in the business of, getting kids and families in when they can safely to buy stuff. How does that funnel look for them? And what is the AR for the youth group? What's the level of AR that they need to be excited?
I think the filter thing and the kind of, what's just happened with your child is kind of slightly refers back to the point we were making a minute ago, which was someone had some insight in the sense that they said, well, why don't we give something to someone for free? Because if that was entertaining enough for them to be engaged with people, let's say a face filter, for example, if it's a good face filter, then they can potentially end up engaging with that for 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. And then they can then share that output with their network of, let's say, 1,000 people who are each then going to spend, let's say, then you've got a conversion rate of, 30%. And then they're doing it for another 10, 15, 20 minutes. If you think about what TV went through in terms of trying to basically force people, and YouTube's not really that far away at the moment in terms of forcing you to watch and be happy with 5 to 10 seconds of engagement, then that's massive. It's completely unprecedented in any kind of advertising as far as I'm aware. You cannot generate that level of engagement in any other way, really. People don't even spend that much time over the course of a year in physical stores. They don't
Speaking of physical stores, Alex, we have a question from the floor from the one and only Steven, who we just mentioned. So any idea how AR can add to the in-store experience in terms of conversion? Is it just like the fun brand experience, or can actually get stuff done?
Call me, Steven. I messaged you.
Well, he's not going to call you now because you're live on the internet.
No, that's true. I think that I think the idea, toy stores to me, a majority of the stuff is boxed up. I want to see everything working in the store unboxed, every single product you have. And I want to be able to do that through my phone. And then I want to be able to take all of that home and keep it, and then lead it straight to my e-commerce and buy it from there.
Yeah.
That's, to me, number one.
No, so like use it as a distribution channel, right? So I create this like engaging experience with your product. It's so fun that I share it on my TikTok, and like suddenly you have boom, 1 million views of that. Where can I buy it?
I remember in the years and years ago, I don't know how applicable it is now, but years and years ago, Hamleys in London on Regent Street, the store, which is, I think it's still there, and I think it's kind of 4 floors. It was regarded as a kind of wonderland. So it was a store that you would maybe get to go to as a kid, maybe once a year. If you didn't live in London, that was maybe, it was an experience to go there. And I think that's what you'd need to be recreating using something like AR in a physical store. I mean, the beauty of AR is that you don't really need to have that much physical infrastructure to trigger it. But to me, you want to turn it into a wonderland, and you want to allow someone to walk around and look at any single product box, any single area, and be able to share the experience that they're having with that particular product at any given time in 3D on every single social media platform, as Xava says. I think that becomes, then you start to get back into the idea of, oh, is that a destination? Is that something that I actually want to go to, even if I'm not thinking about a purchase? And I think retail is going to have to be better at being experience-based as opposed to just...
And that's why it's so interesting that we start with the funnel that is linear. Well, nothing in this life is linear.
No.
So that seems that you gravitate towards, like the desire or the need of buying something. And if you, as a marketer, are able to keep the people around and so they get into the right moment of the purchase, I think that's important. And AR supports a lot of different steps in this cycle.
I hope that's a valid answer for Stephen.
Stephen, let us know if that's a valid answer, and if you hate it, give us a thumbs down. If you love it, smash that like button. Smash that like button. I have a boom arm now, so I'm going full YouTube.
It's all got a bit TV announcer, isn't it? I've noticed recently.
Doesn't it just add a level of quality?
Continuity, isn't it? Continuity announcer. The old BBC continuity announcers.
Do you want me to do a BBC accent? I don't think so. So actually, just jumping in on the I forgot to do it. I had the example that you had done at Tilly's of the magical retail experience where the outdoor the store window, the étalage as they say here, actually drew you in, and that was part of the magic. And then once you get inside, who knows? Lots of other stuff could happen. So I wish I would have had it, but I don't. Wanted to jump just to a few other executions here, and strangely enough, they're ones that INDE has done. So first is, I'm wondering about it. So I'm going to play this little video of some recent work that you did, and I would genuinely, sincerely love to debate where this fits in, because I have some ideas. And then the more I thought about it, I surprised myself at what I thought. So without further ado, here's the video. So first, intro this, because this is a big company with like a bajillion followers on social media, I noticed. So can you tell us a little bit, I'm not sure what you can share, but just how this came about and how it fits in?
Well, yeah, this specific campaign, it was something that we were approached by Benefit Cosmetics, and they had this new product launch, right? So they wanted to explore how AR can help, not as the only way of communicating the new product launch, but as one of the many legs of the campaign. So, well, all in all, the concept at the beginning changed from until the time that we finally launched it. But the idea to use AR as a medium of entertainment, not just visualizing the product in a physical way, but keep part of supporting the narrative of their marketing campaign in order to to experience something. And basically, like the idea of bring the product home to people and get to know a little bit more about what it's all about and experience it in their homes. And that's why we create this campaign that's a web AR campaign, meaning that visitors and audience clients doesn't need to download any application, just receive a link or fill up QR code, and instantly they can launch the campaign, enjoying a little bit of learning about the product, and also have like a discount code for the purchase. So that was the principle of this campaign.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I anything that you guys do, I always like go immediately there and play with. The thing I forgot was the when you put a monolith with the monolith. Do you guys remember the monolith craze of 2020? That was the most important thing that happened that year.
About 10 days ago. It feels like about 2 years ago.
I know, man. That was quite a year when that monolith.
I got a bit annoyed. The reason I got annoyed because I didn't know why it arrived initially, so I didn't know the backstory or whether it was a campaign or whatever. And I just got annoyed that someone was then kind of saying that we're now making them. Classic kind of US setup, really. Like someone just moved so quickly and just said, look, we know what that is. We can make it. It's going to cost $35,000. So to me, I was like, no, we'll democratize it so that anyone can have it on the app just for a bit of fun. But that was the speed you could turn it. That kind of thing was, that was the kind of conversation about it. And I think it was kind of put up in sort of 4 or 5 days, I think.
Okay, so I actually wondered about that, how long it takes to create a AR monolith activation, and now we have the answer: 4 to 5ve days.
Yeah,
I'm sure you made it. You're fully occupied with just this.
If you request it definitely moves quicker.
Yeah, yeah. Especially when you need to to keep your team working on benefit, and suddenly they get distracted to build the monolith. Oh, that's lovely.
Okay, it's great that you guys are sitting so close to each other for that. So, but it all worked out there, yes. And in exchange, I'm not sure what you got, Xava. You got to go home, maybe on the company's dime. I don't know. So that's something. I mean, I'm trying to help you out here, Alex. But
I'm not even complaining.
No, I'm just trying to rile something up, to make the rest of your evening difficult, because no skin off my back. So just that's one kind of like very clearly, fun trigger, tells the story. I see it in a PR campaign at the front, as well as clearly you have a click through to the actual product. That may take you, I'm not sure, but it may take you to a place on a website that plants a pixel, and then you're retargeted, yada, yada, yada. So it's just like if you're like so many consumer brands and you're using something like Facebook or Instagram and you get someone to click through, this is really just another way to get them to click through and to get them into your ecosystem. So it's content that works harder than content has been able to work before, right? Because it's the friction between them and that experience is very small, especially if they've got the iPhone, right?
And it also gives brands the opportunity to give something to influencers too, So
right.
It's something that, obviously with something like Insta, for example, if that's an interesting experience, then they're probably more likely to do it. If they're more likely to do it, they're more likely to be able to share it to a larger group quicker. Again, it's, it goes back to that thing about giving people something that's interesting and dynamic and different, etc.
So something completely different, and we have a whole show about this that we did before, but I just want to show it again because I think it is. Oh, we've got a bit of a comment there. And saying he's so late and he's so sorry about it. That's okay, right?
It's not enough.
It's the internet. Everyone will come late, and then most people will watch the recap or the social media cut down edits. We know that. We're cool. But thanks for showing up for Ant. You're probably already gone, Ant, but thanks for coming. We don't hold it against you. So this last thing I wanted to show, and then I know that you guys got to run. The View fitting mirror. We've talked about it before, but it's quite an interesting case study for the funnel because it's hard to place, in my opinion. So this one's got sound because it's still hot off the press, and it's worth showing a video with sound when it's this hot. So here we go. So just before we jump into the funnel, I thinking about my daughters and toy stores and all that stuff today. I'm reminded, and being in Belgium, I didn't mention that, but there's this really strong, big name production company called Studio 100, and they make all the characters that they get like shipped out in different versions across the world. They also make clothes, and my kids have all of the clothes, and they're actually very quite high quality clothes. And just thinking that they would buy them in a place not dissimilar to Dreamland, which is where Steven, where we go to buy toys and other stuff like that. And I just imagine how nuts my daughter would go if she could walk in and then try on the whole Studio 100 like line right there. And like, because no matter what, even if she wouldn't do that, she's walking out with 5 things because that's what they want, because it's got the characters or whatever. But if they could like have them all, and then it would just like, it would be a thing, right? So I'm not pitching, it just would be a thing. So back to McKinsey, because great bridge. 7-year-olds to McKinsey. I'm sure McKinsey, whoever he or she was, had a 7-year-old or was 7 years old at one time. So where does we can't hear you laughing, but we can see you. You got this mic. Like, guys, I got 5 minutes of tight stand up. Just mute yourself, and this is what this is about, right? Anyway, so where do you place this technology? Like, where's it on the funnel, McKinsey wise?
Well, there's a couple of places really. Like, I mean, in terms of evaluation, one of the biggest problems and we did talk about this before, was the idea of clothing try-on. When you're purchasing clothes online, if you're on a large brand website, you are staring at the imagery of someone else wearing that clothing. And I was talking to someone yesterday, James Adams, who might even be here, and saying that we're all different shapes and sizes, and invariably the models that are on those websites kind of aren't. So they're not reflective of us as human beings. And I think that to me has always just been a kind of really troublesome part of it. And I think we've gone from imagery that we had in terms of the clothing on its own. We've then had the clothing placed onto models, and then we've had the JPEGs of that, and then we've moved on to video of the model walking back and forward in a studio. And ultimately, the way you're going to increase conversion is to allow people to try the clothes on. And if they're not in a physical store, or even if they are, they're only going to be able to put on 1 or 2 T-shirts in a store, for example. No one's going to spend 2 hours trying every single variation on. So if you can speed that process up, if you can decrease the friction, and if you can actually get to the point where potentially people could also do that at home, then you are going to increase conversion of the product that you're selling, and you're going to reduce the returns. You're on mute now, Brett, I think.
That was by design. I was just saying, you've got every part of the funnel covered on that one.
Also, to add on to that, also the loyalty. If you've got a product at home that is now allowing people to keep purchasing through it, then you're getting into very, very interesting kind of Amazon-style models. Because do you remember the dash buttons? I love the dash buttons. Now, but I love the dash buttons.
Yeah.
But it was just like, it was inspirational in the way, in the thought behind it.
No, the frictionless, like I need it now. Push the button, the most lovely interface in the world.
So I think from that point of view, the sooner that we can get to a point where people use the AR feature, the AR technique or the technology as an ongoing tool to buy things and to experience things and to use things, then it should effectively start to appear in 2-3 parts of that McKinsey cycle.
Yeah, and imagine, like, we're getting older, guys. Let's be honest. So, like like how physical and digital is merging now. Like with, as you mentioned, kids. I'm like having fun with my nieces, and like the idea of like digital clothes that follow you around in your Roblox account or in your Fortnite or whatever, and that also can can live in an AR environment through a mirror, through whatever. It's something that will happen, like, and tools like, for instance, or View product. It's another way of communication, how you can arrive to that place. So yeah, that's exciting the future.
Cool. Well, I know you guys got to run, but thanks for carving out some time. Enjoy the rest of your quarantine period, which I'm sure you'll respect fully. Enjoy the delicious Mexican cooking.
Oh my God.
And whatever you eat in Middle America. Great. So we will see you again soon. This has been AR Explainer. Alex Poulson, give us a wave. Yeah, Xava Fragoso, CDO, INDE. It's been fun. See you next time.